And welcome back to my shop. This here is a 2022 KX450. As you can see, this thing is looking a little rough, missing the shroud right there. But subframe is completely bent off to the side, as well as that's blood, actually. The owner, what he says is that the bike just took off on its own. He landed from a jump, and he was heading into a corner, and out of nowhere, the bike went blah, blah, and it just took off on its own. Here's a video of it. Watch for yourself. Yeah, he says he didn't wrist lock or anything, and just the bike and took off. Now this, I already looked it over a little bit, couldn't find anything yet, but we're gonna dig into it and see if we can find. That was already broken. We don't know if it happened in that crash or a previous crash, but I played with this throttle as long as I could, and I pulled on this, and I've done everything, and I can't seem to make it do anything abnormal. So we're just gonna have to dig in. I know one thing's for certain: for the bike, if he did not get wrist lock, if it took off on its own, the bike cannot take off on its own unless it gets air. I mean, you can flood it with fuel, but if it doesn't get air, it's just going to bog and die. And so we can't say an injector just shot air for no reason. Too much gas for no reason. We can't blame it on fuel. It needs air to take off. So it has to be something with the throttle body, the blade, something in there, cable related. Who knows? But we're going to have to dig in and find out, because obviously he wants confidence in his machine again. He don't want to be scared to ride his bike. So I'm hoping I find what caused his throttle to stick, so that I can show it to him, fix it, and he'll be confident to ride this thing again. So let's dig in. I'm going to go ahead and remove the seat and the tank first to get some access. Okay, the seat and the tank is off. I'm not finding anything strange with the cables down here. They don't look like they were pinched or anything. They're in the proper location. So that's looking good. I'm going to go ahead and continue to get the whole rear end off, because we're going to have to get this all this stuff straightened out anyway. So I'm going to remove the muffler and start working on getting that subframe off of there. That way we can get a straight shot view into that throttle body and see what's going on, hopefully. One thing to note is before I disconnected the battery here, I hit the start button and it started to start, and I saw a spark shoot right here and it pulled out. I found this negative terminal loose. As soon as I tightened it up, then the bike continued to crank back over. So I don't see how that can make a bike take off on its own, but let's just keep that in mind, and I'll ask him if maybe he loosened that up before he brought the bike to me. But I'm going to note that. Let's keep moving forward. Okay, I pulled the battery out, and I took the starter solenoid, all the wiring, and unclipped it from this right here. And I'm just hanging it over the front of the frame here. That way we can get the subframe off. I'm going to go to the other side and remove the muffler now. Okay, the subframe's off. I can see down to the throttle body. Everything's looking good in there. So yeah, everything's looking good here. I don't see any loose screws on the throttle blade or anything like that. So, question is, did something come from the air filter area and get lodged up in the throttle blade, and then after the crash obviously it ingested it and spit out the exhaust pipe or whatever. So I'm gonna have to take the air box apart, take the air filter out, and just make sure everything's still in there. Inside of the air filter looks fine. The screen's still fully intact and everything, and nothing came loose inside of here that could have gotten to the throttle body and lodged it open, and there's just nothing to come loose in there to do that. So now I went ahead and pulled the cover off to get you access to the throttle cables on the throttle body. You can see in there, and they look okay. Everything looks good. So last thing for me to check, I would say, for right now is just take the throttle housing apart and see what we got in there. Nothing to be alarmed about here either. Everything looks good. I mean, besides this part that broke right here, but that could have happened in the crash, and even with it broke, I don't think it caused the bike to just give itself throttle. So, but everything's looking good. I don't know. Let me think a little bit. Okay, after speaking with the owner, explaining to or telling him that the only thing I found was a loose battery connection on the ground, couldn't find anything else. He said that that makes sense to him because it did feel like it kind of like lost power, and out of nowhere it just came to life, like it just took off. So now I do understand that you can disconnect the negative while the bike's idling or running, and they'll generally stay running. But at the same time, when you have a negative that's making connection and not connection and just rattling around in there, it can change all kinds of stuff in the electronics of the bike. The ECU is expecting a consistent voltage and things like that, and it can make them run funny or even shut off. So what I'm thinking the bike shut off on him. He gave it a little bit of gas, and there was nothing there, and he just kind of held it there because he was thinking, he told me he rides by feel, so he really doesn't know how much gas. He's just feeling for the power, and so he's probably giving it gas and while heading into the corner, out of nowhere the bike just lit back up and just took off, and he didn't realize he was giving it gas at that moment because just a moment before it was not making any power, so he thought he was giving it no throttle. That's the only thing we can come up with, and it seems legit. I'm gonna go ahead and order a new throttle cable for it, or throttle cables, and a new battery, because that battery just took a dump on us actually. And it does have a broken shifter as well, but he has one of them on the way. So I would say the moral of this story is make sure your battery cables are tight, both your positive and negative, and the little brass one. I found this loose too. The little brass one in the subframe, or the braided wire on the subframe. Make sure that's Loctited on there. You want to make sure that that's going to stay tight. I would say that's the moral of this story. But yeah, let's go ahead and order these parts, and we'll put it back together. Oh, and this video would not be complete without me giving some solid advice, especially people are watching this video and are like, what if my throttle gets stuck on my bike, or what if my bike just takes off for no reason and just shoots me over a berm or whatever? What do you do if your throttle sticks? Just go ahead and write it in the comment real quick, hit pause, and tell me, what would you do if your throttle stuck or if your bike just took off for no reason? Now that you wrote that in the comment section, I'll tell you what I think. I think it's difficult to get to the kill switch when your bike takes off real quick. You're just, it's gonna be hard. I mean, the bike's yanking your arms off, and hopping off the back, yeah, in an emergency situation, well, you better do it fast, because every second the bike's going faster. The best thing you can do is always keep your finger on the clutch when you ride. You should do that. Keep your fingers on the clutch, either like that, 2 fingers, or 1 finger, or some people even use these 3 fingers right here. But whatever the case is, always have access to your clutch. Anytime your bike takes off unexpectedly, pull that clutch in. If it ever happens to you, I should say, pull that clutch in. Who cares if the bike revs to the moon and hits the rev limiter while you're trying to figure it out? Just pull the clutch in, and then you can hit that. Now, if you always keep your fingers on the lever, you'll find that a lot of times when you're on the brakes real hard, you're going in the corner and you're slamming the brakes real hard, you have to pull on the clutch lever to keep it from stalling, because that's what happens. You get on the brakes real hard, sometimes the back tire locks up and it stalls. So if you keep your fingers on the lever and you use your brakes hard, it's going to become natural that when you need that bike to stop, you're going to pull in the clutch while you're slamming the brakes. That will become a natural just instinct. And if your bike ever shoots off for no reason, or if you ever chop the throttle but the bike just keeps taking off, you're going to think, I got to stop this bike. You're just going to do what's natural. You're going to pull in the clutch and get on the brakes. So always keep your fingers on the clutch. That is your safety mechanism right there. It's going to be hard to get to this if your bike shoots off, I promise you. Alright, the parts arrived. Got a new battery for it, since that battery took a dump while I was disconnecting it. The lithium batteries are like that. Sometimes when you're connecting them, disconnecting them, if they're close to giving up the ghost, that's when they do it, and it did. So, and we got new throttle cables. I already installed them. Sorry, I just totally forgot I should be finishing up this video. I just went right to work. But, yeah, new throttle cables installed, so that's good. And we're going to finish buttoning her up here. It's not a whole lot to show you, but I'll just show you the final product. But yeah, after thinking about it quite a bit, we've come to the conclusion it had to be the ground connecting and disconnecting, and which will sit there and make the voltage fluctuate, and there's a scaling in the ECU that it's always sensing what the system's voltage is, so it knows when it's sending voltage out the sensors, and the sensor has a certain amount of resistance for certain conditions it sees, and it sends that signal back. Well, the ECU needs to know what the overall system voltage is, so it can understand what's coming back and scale it to that, to what the system voltage is. And with the negative on the battery just randomly connecting to disconnecting the rod, and that can obviously skew the scaling and cause all kinds of running issues. And we believe that's what happened here. But let me go ahead and button it up and we'll test her out. Okay, I got the subframe back on. By the way, remember the subframe was really twisted up. Look how much straighter I got it. We didn't have to buy a new one. It might still need some minor corrections. Once I get the rear fender on, I'll take a look at that. But yeah, here's how I did this one. Right there, that big sledgehammer. All I did was I smacked it right here. You can probably see a little mark. As long as you hit it, usually these subframes, I've straightened a lot of them out. As long as you hit it in the area where a brace goes from the left to the right, it'll shift the whole subframe over. I know it looks bad at first when they're off to the side, because it also kind of like tweaks them this way, but as you knock them in, they usually level back out. And once we get the rear fender on it, we'll see if we have to make any more minor changes. But as long as you hit it in the area where the brace goes to the other side, it'll shift the whole, both sides together. If you hit all the way at the end, you're just going to bend this end in. And if you hit up in here, you might just pinch this in. So you want to hit where there's a brace. But that's what I did. Took a big hammer. In the past, I've been able to just sling them up against a tree and get them straight. But yeah, I'll use a hammer on this one. So I got the subframe on. Got the battery connected. No exhaust on it. But before I go any further, let me just make sure she fires up. She's going to be loud. Alright, she fires up. Let me continue on. Terminals, both sides. I also Loctited the ground strap right here on the subframe. We don't need that happening again. Rear fender is back on, and she's still a little crooked. Let's go ahead and give her a couple more whacks. Well, after further observation, it's actually not the subframe, it's the rear fender. The rear fender, it's the aftermarket rear fender Sorbus kit. Look at it. Look at the seat. If you look at top of the seat to the rear fender, you'll see the rear fender's twisted that way. But the seat itself is centered with the back tire. So that's just these aftermarket plastic. They come out of the bag, and a lot of times they're twisted, and just how it. I mean, it can happen with OEM stuff too. And in that case, I usually return it. But yeah, subframe straight, rear fender's a little crooked. Maybe we can do something about that. Maybe twist it overnight and see if it holds. But otherwise, at least the subframe's straight. So keep moving forward. Alright, get some of the plastic on. I need to get this radiator straightened out. This thing's pretty bent. I'm going to take it off, see if I can salvage it. Well, almost finished product. He had me put some new plastic on it, and I'm missing some of the hardware here. He has that at home, no big deal. But these are Sorbus plastic kits. Sometimes the fenders don't come out very straight. So you can see the rear, if you look at the rear seat, you'll see that the fender is crooked. So keep that in mind. But the rear seat is centered with the rear tire and the bike. So the subframe is nice and straight. I was also able to straighten up that radiator right there. I pulled it off, and if you're interested in that, I can make a video on that one of these days, how to straighten up twisted and dented radiators. And the exhaust is back on. I do have a new set of tires I need to install. I'll do that after this video, but yeah, she's up and going. Check it out. Well, that's pretty much it. That's a wrap. Moral of the story is, make sure your battery is good and tight. The terminals, lock tight the ground strap to the subframe, and heck, even lock tight the bolts to hold your battery terminals on the battery. The little blue Loctite won't hurt. Keep that computer from glitching around if it comes loose during a mid-ride. I appreciate you guys watching this. If you like this kind of stuff, please click subscribe. I will have more videos like this coming. Catch you later.